What's up guys, I'm Chirag and welcome to this video tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you or take you through on how to SSH or log in into an EC2 instance from Lambda function and how we can execute remote commands from Lambda function within EC2 instance. Right, so to SSH into an instance, we will use a Python package that is paramiku. So basically paramiku is a Python implementation of the SSH version 2 protocol. So that ideally provides both client and server functionality to us, right? So, and apart from that, we will also need PEM file to successfully log in or SSH into an EC2 instance, right? So paramiku package does not come inbuilt within Python. So we have to install it and use it. So now to use paramiku within Lambda function, we have to build Lambda layers for that and attach it with the Lambda function, right? So we will start with launching an EC2 instance and we will use that to build paramiku layers package, that is Lambda layers package, and then we will SSH into the same instance via the Lambda function and probably we will execute certain commands, right? So let's get started. So ideally the flow will be like we will have the Lambda layers, then we will create an IAM role and then we will create the Lambda function and then the execution takes place, right? So let's get started. So assuming that you already have logged in into AWS management console, and once you are there, navigate to EC2 management console. Sorry, not ECS, EC2. Now here, click on launch instance. Now here we will select Ubuntu server 18.04 LTS, select. Within instance type, I will select E2 micro, click on next. This we will leave it as it is, storage. So we will leave it as 8 GB over here, click on next. Maybe I will add a name tag, I will say Lambda layer, click on next. Within security group, I will select an existing security group. Maybe I will say not this one, but ECS Flask Docker, that is port 80 and port 22, though we don't require port 80, right? So we will only be using port 22 for logging in to the instance, right? Then click on review and launch. Now here we will create a new key pair. I will say Lambda SSH probably, right? I will download this key pair and then finally click on launch instance. Now the instance is in running state, so we will log in into that instance. So copy the public IP, navigate to terminal. So since I have recently downloaded the PEM file, so I have to change the permission. So that's going to be chmod 400 lambda ssh.pem and then ssh-i lambda ssh.pem followed by the username, that is ubuntu @IPv4, that is public IP. So yes, we want to connect. So let's clear this. So the very first command that we will execute is sudo apt-get update clear. So I have already did 2 tutorials, if I am not wrong, on Lambda layers. So this will be kind of fast forward, right? So here we will use Python 3.8 So by default, I think Python 3.6 comes pre-installed within Ubuntu, Python 3-v. So that's Python 3.6.9. So we are going to first install Python 3.8. So we will say sudo apt install Python 3.8. Yes. So it is installed. Now we have to update alternatives. So if I say Python 3-v, then it will say Python 3.6.9, and now if I say Python 3.8-v, then it says Python 3.8.0, right? So we have to change the default version. So that's going to be sudo update alternatives install, which will be followed by the path, that is /user/bin/python3 space python3, and the reference of the Python installation, I believe that's going to be user bin Python 3.6 and the preference. So I'll say 1, enter. Oops, it should be sudo. And now we will perform the same step with Python 3.8. So we'll say Python 3.8 over here, and we will say preference as 2, enter. Let's clear this, right? And once this is done, we will say sudo update alternatives --config space python3. Now here we have to select which version we want in auto mode. So we'll say 2, that is user bin Python 3.8, right? So enter. And now if I do Python 3-v, that is version, now it says Python 3.8.0, right? So now we have successfully installed and configured Python 3.8, right? So now the next step is to install pip3, right? So it's going to be sudo apt-get install Python 3-pip. Yes. Oh, why did it abort it? So let's clear this and try to rerun this command. So now it's installing pip3, that is Python package manager. So now the Python package manager is successfully installed, right? So now here we are going to create a directory structure. You have to probably make sure that you are mentioning or creating the right directory structure, right? Else it will not work within Lambda function, right? So it's going to be mkdir. So we want to use this paramiku or whatever package for runtime Python 3.8 within Lambda function, right? So it's going to be mkdir-p followed by build /python /lib followed by Python 3.8. So make sure you are mentioning correct version over here. So in case if we want to use this for Python 3.6, then we will be mentioning Python 3.6 instead of Python 3.8, right? So that's how it works. Followed by site packages, followed by, and it's done, right? So enter. Now the path is created. If I do ls, then we have the whole structure, right? So I did a spelling mistake over here. So instead of build, I had mentioned buikd. So let me remove this and recreate the structure. So it's build, right? Enter. Now if I do ls, then we have it, right? So clear this out. Now we will use pip3, that is a Python package manager, to install paramiku package. So that's going to be pip3 install paramiku -t. So -t defines the target directory in which we want to install. So that will follow the path, that is build python lib python 3.8 site packages, right? Followed by ---- system. Enter. And now the package is installed successfully within the directory that we have mentioned, right? So now we will do cd build ls. Now here we are going to zip the whole path or the whole package. So for that we will require zip. So we will say sudo apt install zip. Yes. Now it is installed. Now we will say zip -r. I will say package paramiku.zip. And what we want to zip, so I will say dot, that means the current directory, right? So dot, enter. So I will clear this. Now if I do ls, we have package paramiku.zip, right? So now we are going to push this zip file to the S3 bucket. So I have already created the S3 bucket, that is recognite. So I'm going to push that zip file within this bucket, and then we will later reference to this bucket while creating the Lambda layers, right? So now to push the package to the S3 bucket, we will require AWS CLI. So here we are going to use AWS CLI version 2, right? So to install that, we have to curl. So it's going to be curl followed by the URL from where we will download the file. So I have that over here within this text pad, right? So I'll paste it. Oops. Let me clear this again. And now I will say curl followed by the URL. Followed by -o, and I will say double quote AWS CLI version 2.zip. So it will save the file with AWS CLI version 2.zip, right? So enter. And now we have the file. So clear ls. So it says AWS CLI version 2.zip. Now we are going to unzip this file. So that's going to be unzip AWS CLI version 2.zip. Enter. And now we have the directory. So if I do ls, we have the AWS directory over here, right? So now we are going to execute sudo dot followed by the AWS directory followed by the install file within that directory, right? So enter. So now it says you can run AWS -- version. So it is successfully installed, right? So it says AWS CLI version 2.0.5. So now we have AWS CLI configured, installed, right? But now to push the package successfully to S3, we will require permission, right? So for that, we are going to use IAM role and we are going to attach it with the EC2 instance. So I already have the IAM role to give the S3 bucket permission to the EC2 instance, right? So for that, you need to select the EC2 instance, click on actions, click on instance settings and say attach or replace IAM role. And I have this role saying EC2 S3 access. So I'm going to select this and apply. So in case if you don't have the role, go ahead to IAM management console, click on roles from the left panel and click on create role. Within that role, select the EC2 instance as a service and then click on next and then select maybe S3 bucket full access and then finally click on next and give a role name and come back to EC2 management console, select the instance and attach the role as I have just shown, right? So close this, go back to terminal. Now here we will say AWS S3, that is service, copy what we want to copy. So maybe let me ls. So I will say AWS S3 copy this package paramiku.zip to S3 :// followed by the bucket name. So in my case, it's recognite. So I'll copy this, paste, enter. And now the package is uploaded successfully. Let's go ahead to S3 bucket and reload this. And as you can see, we have this package, that is package paramiku.zip, right, which is recently pushed or uploaded, right? So now once we have the zip file within S3 bucket, click on services, navigate to Lambda management console. Now here, click on layers from the left panel, say create layer, give the layer name. So I will say paramiku package, right? Now here I will select upload a file from Amazon S3, go back to S3, click on this zip file, copy this object URL, right? Go back to Lambda, paste it over here and select the compatible runtime. So in my case, it's Python 3.8 and finally click on create, right? So it will take a while to get created, right? So now we have the Lambda layers and the paramiku package. So apart from that, I had mentioned one more thing, that is we will require PEM file. So I have to upload the PEM file to this S3 bucket. So what I will do is I will upload this lambda ssh.pem within this S3 bucket, right? So it's here and I will say upload. Right, and the PEM file is uploaded successfully. So now we have both things. Now we will move back to the Lambda management console. But before creating the Lambda function, we will require IAM role for the Lambda function, right? So first we will create the IAM role, because we have to provide permission to Lambda function for S3 and EC2 instance and the CloudWatch logs, right? So go to IAM management console, click on roles from the left panel, say create role. Select Lambda as a service because we are creating this role for Lambda function. Next, permission. Here I will say Lambda so I will select Lambda basic execution role. So probably this will have permission to CloudWatch logs, right? And apart from that, we will require S3. So I will select Amazon S3 full access and one more, that is EC2. So I will say Amazon EC2 full access and then finally click on next review, give the role name. So I will say Lambda underscore SSH and say create role. So now once the IAM role is created, go back to Lambda management console and click on create function. Right, now give a function name. So I will say SSH Lambda EC2, select runtime as Python 3.8. Within permission, click on use an existing role, select the role that we have just created. So that was SSH probably Lambda underscore SSH and say create function. Right, now once the function is created, click on layers from the design panel, say add a layer. Now here you can directly provide the ARN or you can select from the list of runtime that is compatible layers with Python 3.8. Now within name, select paramiku package. So this is the Lambda layer that we have just created. Select the version, that is version 1 and say add and finally click on save. Right, now let's go ahead and try to import that package. So I will say import paramiku. So if everything is fine, then it will be able to successfully execute this Lambda function without any error, right? So I will say test. So it says it failed, syntax error in module. What is that? Import paramiku. Let's reload this. Oh, okay. Paramiku. Okay. And say save. And let me reload this again. I am just making sure that Lambda function is saved successfully. Yeah, it's saved. So now click on test. And as you can see, it succeeded, right? So there is no error and our Lambda layers is working fine since we are successfully able to import that package over here, right? So now once the Lambda function is created, so now we are going to write some code, but not basically we are going to write the code exactly. So we are going to copy and paste the code. So I have already pushed the code for that on the GitHub. So I will paste the link within the video description. So we are going to use this code. So I'm going to copy this. Copy, go back to Lambda function and I will paste it over here and finally I will say save. So I will quickly take you through the code. So what exactly we are doing over here, right? So let's start with the import statement. So here we are using Boto3 and paramiku. So Boto3 for fetching the public IP address from the EC2 instance, and also for downloading the PEM file from the S3 bucket, right? So we will come to that line by line. Now here on line, so maybe let me close this. Yes. So on line 16 and 17, we are defining the Boto3 object for EC2 instance and S3 service, right? So not the EC2 instance, but EC2 service and the S3 service, right? And then on line number 20, we are getting the EC2 instance information using client.describe instances, right? So this client is referring to line number 16, right? And on line number 23, we have defined a list, that is empty list, in which we are going to add the public IP address of the running instance. So here on line 20, we will have the instance information, and then we are looping through it. So it says for I in describe instance of reservation. So this will be basically a dictionary, right? And then on line 26, we are looping into the instance within reservation, and then we are checking whether the instance is running or not on line number 27. If that instance is running, then we will fetch the public IP address, right? And then finally we are appending that public IP address within host public IP, which is a list that we have defined on line number 23, right? So in our case, I will be having only one public IP address, but in your case, if more than one instance are in running state, then you might end up having multiple public IP address for multiple instances, right? And then finally, we will require the PEM file to access the EC2 instance or to SSH within the EC2 instance, right? So on line number 33, we are using Boto3 client.download file to download the PEM file. So here you have to update the bucket name. So in my case, it's going to be recognite, right? And you have to reference the name of the PEM file. So in my case, it's lambda ssh.pem, right? So you have to update that too, right? So what we are saying that from recognite bucket download lambda ssh.pem file, and where you want to store that file. So we are saying that store that file within temp directory as file.pem, right? So that's what we are doing on line number 33. Then once we have the PEM file, using paramiku package to SSH into that instance, right? So on line 36, we are reading PEM file or the private file and creating its object, followed by defining an instance of the paramiku SSH client on line 38. And finally on line 40, we are setting a policy to connect to unknown host, right? So if you remember, then while we restart or start a new instance, and when we try to SSH into that instance for the very first time, it's ask us a question, are you sure you want to, and something like that, right? So at that point of time, we have to say yes, and then it allows us to successfully SSH into an instance for the first time, right? So that's what we are doing on line 40. Right, and then on line 42, so as I said, if you have more than one instance running, then you will end up having multiple public IP address, but in my case it's only one instance running, so I'm just fetching the very first value from the host public IP. So I'll be having the public IP address within host variable on line 42, right? Followed by on line 45, we are actually connecting or doing SSH into that instance. So within hostname, we are passing on public IP address followed by the username. So I have the Ubuntu instance, so the username will be Ubuntu. In your case, if you have spinned up Linux, then it will be EC2-user, I believe, instead of Ubuntu, right? And then we are passing the reference or the PEM file object as p key. So this key is coming from line number 36, right? And finally on line 49, I had mentioned commands. So I want to execute ls, right? And you can execute whatever commands you want, or maybe I will say mkdir hello. So I want to create the directory, right? So this will execute two commands, that is first it will do ls and then it will say mkdir hello, and then I think we should have hello directory within the EC2 instance. So we will check that, right? So mention all your commands over here that you want to execute, right? And then since this is a list, on line 55 we are going to loop through each of the command, right? And on line 57 we are actually executing that command. So it says ssh client dot execute command followed by the command, right? And it will return 3 values, and then finally we are printing. So we will be able to see those execution logs within CloudWatch logs, right? So that's the high level of what this code means, right? So save this. Now once this is done, we are ready to test this function. So if I go back to EC2 instance and if I do cd, oops, now if I do ls, so we have only build directory, right? So now we should also have hello directory after executing the Lambda function if it's successful, right? And we should also be able to see the ls results within the CloudWatch logs, right? So let's go ahead and test this function. So click on test. So one more thing before clicking on test, you have to update the default timeout. So scroll down to basic settings, click on edit, because this function will not be able to execute successfully within 3 seconds, right? So I will simply increase it to 1 minute 3 seconds probably, right? And say save this. Now I think we are good to go. Make sure you have correct bucket name on line 33. So I have recognite and the correct file name, right? And if I go to EC2 instance, if I close this, so I have only one instance in running state, right? And its IP address is 3.84.251.104, right? So let's click on test. Oh, it's successfully executed, right? So here you will be able to see that IP address. So we are printing few things. So it says connecting to, and then finally at connected, and then it started with executing the commands. So first command was ls. So we had only build directory initially, and then followed by the mkdir hello directory, right? So now if I go back to terminal and if I do ls, I should have two directory. As you can see, we have hello as a directory created by the Lambda function, right? So probably this is how you can SSH into the EC2 instance using Lambda function and execute series of commands. And I hope it's not overwhelming since I took a little bit more time in explaining this code basically, right? So well, that's it for this tutorial. Until that time, if you want me to do tutorial on any use case or service, then please leave them below and I will try my best to come up with the tutorial as soon as possible. And if you have any queries or comments, then again please leave them below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel.